The lock clicks with a hollow finality as Mason Everett's eyes bore into mine through the narrow slot in the metal door. "Enjoy your stay, darling," he whispers, voice dripping with cold satisfaction. A cruel smile curls his lips as the viewing panel slides shut, plunging me into near darkness. The distant echo of his footsteps fades away as he ascends the concrete stairs, leaving me trapped in this underground prison, a honeymoon surprise he'd been planning all along. I pound against the steel door until my fists ache, my wedding ring catching the dim light from the single bulb overhead. The reality crashes over me like a wave. My husband of just 3 days has locked me in a bunker and left me to die. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My breath comes in ragged gasps as I take in my surroundings. Concrete walls, a small cot with a thin blanket, a sink, and a toilet in the corner. The air is stale, heavy with the scent of earth and metal. My mind reels, trying to process how I ended up here, trying to understand how the man who vowed to love me forever just days ago could do something so monstrous. "Help!" I scream, knowing it's futile. We're miles from civilization, on a private property Mason's family has owned for generations, nestled deep in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia. No one would hear me. That was precisely why he chose this place. I sink to the floor, my designer honeymoon dress, a flowing white sundress I'd bought especially for our trip, now smudged with dirt and dampness. My phone, my purse, my identification, everything is gone, locked away upstairs in the cabin that sits above this hidden bunker. I have nothing but the clothes on my back and the crushing weight of betrayal pressing down on me. The bunker isn't large, maybe 15 by 15 feet, with cement walls painted a dull beige that's peeling in places. There's a small bookshelf with a few dusty paperbacks, a battery-powered lantern, and a radio that I quickly discover has no reception this far underground. In one corner sits a stack of canned food and bottled water, enough to last maybe a week, I estimate. Was that his plan? To let me slowly starve once the supplies ran out? I pace the perimeter, running my hands along every inch of the walls, searching for weakness, for hope, for any way out. But the bunker was built during the Cold War era by Mason's paranoid grandfather. It was designed to withstand nuclear fallout. I am trapped in a tomb engineered to keep the outside world at bay. My mind flashes back to just hours earlier. Mason suggesting we take a walk through the woods surrounding the remote cabin he'd rented for our honeymoon. "I want to show you something special," he'd said, his blue eyes twinkling with what I mistook for romance. Hand in hand, we'd hiked through dappled sunlight until we reached a clearing where a strange metal hatch protruded from the ground. "My grandfather built this," Mason had explained, pulling a key from his pocket. "A bunker for the end of the world. I've maintained it over the years. Come see." Trusting, naive, blinded by love, I'd followed him down the narrow stairs, marveling at the construction, the foresight, the oddity of it all. I never saw the transformation in his expression as he backed toward the door. Never noticed how his loving gaze hardened into something unrecognizable until it was too late. "Mason?" I'd questioned, confusion creeping into my voice as he stood in the doorway. "What are you doing?" "Creating my freedom," he'd answered simply, before slamming the door shut. Now, as the shock begins to wear off, fury takes its place. I grab one of the metal food cans and hurl it against the wall, the crash echoing through the confined space. I scream until my throat burns, tears streaming down my face. How could I have missed the signs? How could I have married a monster? Hours pass, marked only by the steady ticking of my wristwatch. I force myself to calm down, to think logically. If I'm going to survive, if I'm going to escape, I need to stay clear-headed. I take inventory of my prison, 12 cans of food, 14 bottles of water, a stack of books, a small first aid kit, a roll of toilet paper, and a thin blanket. Not much to work with, but better than nothing. I examine the door, solid steel. With no internal handle, just the small viewing slot that can only be opened from the outside. The hinges are on the exterior. The ventilation comes from a system of pipes too small for even a child to crawl through. Mason thought of everything. As night falls, at least, I assume it's night, with no windows to tell time by, I curl up on the small cot, hugging my knees to my chest. Two thoughts keep me company in the darkness. How did I not see this coming? And more importantly, how am I going to get out of here alive? Sleep comes in fitful bursts, nightmares jolting me. Awake. In my dreams, Mason stands over me, watching me with those cold eyes, explaining in his calm, methodical way why I have to disappear. I wake gasping, disoriented, before reality crashes back. The nightmare is real. Morning brings no relief. Just the harsh glare of the single bulb that I've left on overnight, afraid of being swallowed by complete darkness. I force myself to eat, to drink water, to plan. There must be a way out. There has to be. I think about Mason, trying to understand what drove him to this. We met 2 years ago at a charity fundraiser in Philadelphia. I was working as an event coordinator, and he was there representing his family's investment firm, Everett Holdings. He was charming, attentive, seemingly genuine, everything a woman could want. He courted me with expensive dinners, thoughtful gifts, and what I believed was unwavering devotion. His family had welcomed me with practiced smiles and polite conversation. In hindsight, I should have noticed how his mother, Eleanor Everett, assessed me like a specimen under a microscope, how his brother Caleb's laughter never quite reached his eyes when I spoke. But I was so in love, so eager to be accepted into their world of wealth and privilege, that I ignored the warning signs. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The proposal came after a year, a romantic dinner at an exclusive restaurant, a 2-carat diamond ring, and promises of forever. The wedding was lavish, featured in society pages, a perfect union between Mason Everett, heir to the Everett fortune, and Sophie Turner, the beautiful event planner who had captured his heart. If only they knew the truth behind those magazine-perfect smiles. A metallic scraping sound jolts me from my thoughts. The viewing slot slides open, and Mason's eyes appear, studying me with detached curiosity, like a scientist observing a lab rat. "You're awake. Good." His voice is eerily calm. "I was worried you might do something drastic." "Mason, please," I say, rushing to the door, trying to keep my voice steady. "Let me out. Whatever this is, we can talk about it. We can fix it." He laughs, the sound hollow and chilling. "There's nothing to fix, Sophie. This is the solution." "Solution to what?" I demand, anger flaring. "What did I do?" "You existed," he says simply. "You threatened everything I've built, everything my family stands for. The prenup wasn't enough, your little investigation into our finances made that clear." My blood runs cold. Last month, I'd accidentally stumbled across some discrepancies in Mason's accounts while using his laptop. Large sums of money moving through shell companies, suspicious transactions labeled as consulting fees. When I'd asked him about it, he dismissed my concerns, saying it was just how business worked at their level. I'd let it drop, not wanting to seem untrusting. "I wasn't investigating anything," I protest. "I just saw some numbers that didn't make sense." "And you kept looking," he counters. "I checked your search history, Sophie. Financial fraud, money laundering signs, how to report suspicious banking activity. You were going to ruin everything." "I was just curious. I wasn't going to report anything." His eyes narrow. "I couldn't take that chance. The Everett name has to remain untarnished. Our investors expect perfection. So your solution is to lock me in a bunker?" "Mason, this is insane. People will look for me." His smile returns, confident and terrifying. "Will they? Your parents are dead. You're an only child. Your friends think we're on our honeymoon in Fiji for the next 3 weeks, a surprise I arranged just yesterday. No one will miss you until it's far too late." The viewing slot slams shut before I can respond, leaving me alone with this horrifying new information. Mason isn't just having some kind of psychotic break, this was planned, calculated. He brought me here with the express purpose of making me disappear. I sink to the floor, my back against the cold metal door. Tears threaten, but I push them back. Crying won't help me now. I need to think, to find a way out before Mason returns to finish whatever he started. The day drags on endlessly. I search the bunker again, more thoroughly this time, looking for anything I might have missed. I examine the books on the shelf, mostly survivalist manuals and a few classic novels. In one, The Count of Monte Cristo, I find something interesting. Several pages where someone has underlined passages about escape, about patience, about revenge. Was this Mason's grandfather? Some previous occupant? The thought that I might not be the first person trapped here sends a shiver down my spine. I turn my attention to the ventilation system. The main vent is in the ceiling, about 8 feet up, covered with a metal grate that's screwed tightly in place. I drag the cot beneath it, stand on the thin mattress, and strain to reach it. My fingers brush against the cool metal, but I have nothing to unscrew it with. Wait, my jewelry. I still have my earrings, necklace, and that gleaming new wedding ring. I twist the diamond ring off my finger, examining its sharp edges. It's not ideal, but it might work as a makeshift screwdriver. I balance precariously on the cot and start working on the screws, my arms aching from being held above my head, the ring slipping in my sweaty grip. After what feels like hours, I manage to loosen one screw enough to twist it out with my fingers. Hope surges through me as it falls into my palm. 3 more to go. I work methodically, ignoring the cramps in my arms and the strain in my neck, focusing solely on the task at hand. The second screw comes loose. Then the third. As I start on the fourth, I hear footsteps above. Mason is returning. Panic floods my system as I work frantically on the final screw, but it's stuck tight, refusing to budge despite my desperate efforts. The sound of the bunker door being unlocked sends me scrambling off the cot. I quickly push it back to its original position, hiding the loose screws under the mattress and slipping the ring back onto my finger. I stand in the center of the room, heart hammering in my chest, as the door swings open. Mason enters carrying a small tray with a sandwich and a fresh bottle of water. He looks perfectly normal, hair neatly combed, wearing an expensive button-down shirt and slacks, as if he's just come from a business meeting rather than checking on his imprisoned wife. "Thought you might be hungry," he says casually, setting the tray on the small metal table in the corner. His eyes scan the room, looking for signs of my escape attempts. I hold my breath, praying he doesn't notice the disturbed vent cover. "How long are you planning to keep me here?" I ask, trying to keep him distracted. He shrugs, an elegant, practiced gesture. "That depends on a few things. The investigation into our finances needs to be resolved first. Then there's the matter of what to do with you." "Investigation?" My voice catches. "What investigation?" A flash of annoyance crosses his face. "The one your little online searches." Triggered. "Someone at the SEC started looking into Everett Holdings last week." "Quite the coincidence, don't you think?" "I didn't report anything," I insist. "I swear, Mason. I was just curious. I didn't understand what I was seeing." He studies my face, searching for lies. "Maybe. Maybe not. Either way, you know too much now." He gestures around the bunker. "Consider this a precaution until things blow over." "And then what? You'll let me go?" I ask, knowing the answer but needing to hear him say it. He smiles, that same empty smile that now chills me to the bone. "We'll see. Eat your sandwich, Sophie. Staying healthy is in your best interest." As he turns to leave, I make a desperate gamble. "Your mother knows, doesn't she? About all of this?" He pauses, hand on the door. "Mother understands what's necessary to protect the family. She sends her regards, by the way. Says it's a shame things couldn't have worked out differently." The door closes behind him, the lock clicking into place with dreadful finality. I don't touch the sandwich, suspecting it might be drugged. Instead, I wait until his footsteps fade away before returning to my escape plan. Standing on the cot. Once more, I work at the final screw with renewed determination. Eleanor Everett's involvement confirms my worst fears. This isn't just Mason acting alone. This is a family decision. They've decided I'm a liability that needs to be eliminated. The last screw finally gives way, and the vent cover comes loose. In my hands. I set it carefully on the cot and peer into the dark opening above. The ventilation shaft is narrow, maybe 12 inches square, but it might be just wide enough for me to squeeze through. The question is, where does it lead? I reach into the shaft, feeling cool metal under my fingertips. It seems to continue upward for several feet before branching off horizontally. If I can make it to that junction, maybe I can find a way to the surface. I grab the thin blanket from the cot and tear it into strips, tying them together to form a makeshift rope. I'll need something to help pull myself up into the shaft. Using one of the books as a weight, I toss my blanket rope through the opening, hoping it will catch on something inside. After several attempts, the rope catches. I pull gently, testing its hold. It seems secure enough. Taking a deep breath, I prepare to hoist myself up when a strange sound stops me, a mechanical whirring coming from outside the bunker. I freeze, listening intently. It sounds like an engine? Yes, definitely an engine, and it's getting louder. Is Mason leaving? That could give me hours to escape without interruption. I wait, hardly daring to breathe, as the sound grows to a roar and then begins to fade. Just as I'm about to return to my escape attempt, another sound freezes my blood. Voices. Multiple voices, coming from above. Mason isn't alone. Has he brought his family to decide my fate? Or worse, has he brought someone to help him dispose of me? I quickly replace the vent cover, loosely setting the screws in place so they appear intact at a glance. I hide my blanket rope under the mattress and move the cot back to its original position. Just in time, footsteps approach the bunker door, and I hear the metallic scrape of the lock being turned. The door swings open to reveal Mason, his expression tense. Behind him stands his brother Caleb, whose face shows a mixture of shock and disgust as he looks at me. "Jesus Christ, Mason," Caleb says, running a hand through his dark hair. "You actually did it. I thought you were joking." "I told you it was necessary," Mason replies coldly. "She knows too much." Caleb steps into the bunker, his eyes never leaving my face. Unlike his brother, whose emotions seem carefully controlled, Caleb's face is an open book, and what I see there gives me a flicker of hope. He's uncomfortable with this situation. Sophie, he says, his voice softer than I've ever heard it. Are you okay? Has he hurt you? Before I can answer, Mason cuts in. She's fine. Well-fed, sheltered. I'm not a monster, Caleb. A bitter laugh escapes my lips before I can stop it. Not a monster? You locked your wife in a bunker on your honeymoon. Caleb turns to his brother, anger flashing in his eyes. This is insane, Mason. Whatever she knows, whatever you think she's done, this isn't the way to handle it. Mother disagrees, Mason says flatly. She's the one who suggested the bunker. Of course she did, Caleb mutters. He turns back. To me. Sophie, I had no idea this was happening. I swear. I study his face, trying to determine if he's telling the truth or if this is some kind of good cop/bad cop routine the Everetts have devised. Help me, then, I say simply. Let me out of here. Caleb glances at Mason, who stands blocking the doorway, his posture rigid. It's not that simple. It is that simple, I insist, taking a step toward him. Either you think imprisoning an innocent woman is wrong, or you don't. Innocent? Mason scoffs. You were digging into our finances, ready to blow the whistle on operations you don't even understand. I wasn't going to report anything. I shout, frustration boiling over. I was just trying to understand what my husband does for a living. Is that a crime? Caleb looks between us, conflict clear on his face. What exactly did she find, Mason? Mason's jaw tightens. Enough to raise questions we can't afford to have asked. The Cayman accounts. The property transfers. The consulting fees to government officials. Understanding dawns on Caleb's face. The Indonesian deal. He turns to me. How much do you know about that? Nothing. I throw my hands up in exasperation. I saw some numbers that didn't make sense, so I googled some terms. That's it. I don't even know what the Indonesian deal is. She's lying, Mason says flatly. She was looking into reporting procedures for financial fraud. Because I wanted to understand what I was seeing. I counter. Not because I was planning to report anything. Caleb seems to be weighing our words, his expression troubled. Finally, he turns to his brother. I need to talk to you outside. When Mason hesitates, Caleb adds, now, Mason. Reluctantly, Mason steps back. Don't try anything, he warns me before following his brother out. The door closes behind them, but in their haste, I notice something miraculous. They haven't fully engaged the lock. I press my ear to the door, straining to hear their conversation. Completely lost your mind, Caleb is saying, his voice raised. This is kidnapping, Mason. Imprisonment. You could go to prison for decades. Only if someone finds out. Mason replies. And no one will. The cabin is miles from anywhere, registered under a shell corporation. No one knows we're here. I know you're here, Caleb points out. And now I'm an accessory to this insanity. Your family, Mason says, as if that explains everything. We protect our own. Sophie is your wife. She should be our own, too. She's a liability. Mother agrees with me. Mother would throw any of us to the wolves if it protected the Everett name, Caleb retorts. That doesn't make this right. Their voices move further away, becoming indistinct. I test the door gently, my heart racing as it gives slightly under. My touch. They really did forget to lock it. This might be my only chance. I glance around the bunker, grabbing a can of food to use as a weapon if necessary. Then, taking a deep breath, I push the door open just enough to peek out. A narrow staircase leads upward, dimly lit by a single bulb at the top. I can still hear Mason and Caleb arguing, but they seem to be in another room. Steeling myself, I slip through the door and begin to climb the stairs, moving as quietly as possible. Each step creaks slightly under my weight, sending jolts of panic through me, but the brothers' heated argument masks the sound. At the top of the stairs is another door, standing slightly ajar. Beyond it, I can see what looks like a storage room, shelves stocked with supplies, tools hanging on the walls. And there, on a hook by the outer door, are my belongings. My purse, my phone. I pause, listening intently. Mason and Caleb's voices are coming from somewhere beyond the storage room, perhaps in the main part of the cabin. This is my chance. I edge the door open wider and slip into the storage room, making a beeline for my belongings. My hands shake as I grab my phone, quickly checking that it still has battery, 42%, enough to call for help if I can get a signal. Just as I'm about to head for what appears to be an exit door, I hear a chair scrape against the floor nearby. They're coming back. Panicked, I look around for a hiding place or another way out. There's a small window high on the wall, too small to climb through, but it shows me that night has fallen. The darkness might give me cover if I can get outside. The exit door is my only option. I turn the handle slowly, wincing at the slight squeak it makes, and push it open just enough to slip through. The cool night air hits my face as I step outside, momentarily disorienting me after the stale atmosphere of the bunker. The cabin sits in a small clearing, surrounded by dense forest. On all sides, a gravel driveway leads away into the trees. That must be how they arrived. And there, parked beside Mason's sleek black Audi, is another car, presumably Caleb's. I dart across the clearing, keeping low, heading for the cover of the trees. If I can make it to the forest, I might be able to follow the driveway out to a main road, or at least hide until I can figure out my next move. I'm halfway to the treeline when the cabin door flies open, light spilling out across the clearing. Mason's silhouette appears in the doorway, his voice sharp with rage. "Sophie, stop right there." I run. Adrenaline propels me forward as Mason's footsteps pound behind me. I reach the edge of the forest, branches whipping against my face as I plunge into the darkness, desperate to put distance between us. "Sophie." Mason's voice is closer than I expected. "There's nowhere to go. You don't even know where you are." He's right, I have no idea where this cabin is located, how far we are from civilization. But I can't go back, can't let him lock me away again. I push deeper into the forest, following what seems to be a rough path, my phone clutched tightly in my hand. I chance a glance at the screen, no signal. Of course. We're too remote. But the phone has another use, its flashlight. I switch it on, immediately illuminating the path ahead, allowing me to move faster. Behind me, I hear Mason crashing through the underbrush, his breath coming in harsh gasps. He's gaining on me. In desperation, I veer off the path, hoping to lose him in the dense trees. It's a mistake. The ground drops away suddenly, and I find myself tumbling down a steep embankment, leaves and dirt filling my mouth as I roll. Pain shoots through my ankle as it twists beneath me. I come to a stop at the bottom, dazed and hurting. Above me, Mason's flashlight beam cuts through the darkness. "Sophie, I can see you down there." I struggle to my feet, testing my injured ankle. It hurts, but it will bear weight. I limp forward, searching for somewhere to hide. A flash of light through the trees catches my eye, not Mason's flashlight, but something steady, artificial. Could it be a house? A road? Hope surges through me as I move toward it, ignoring the pain shooting up my leg. The trees thin out. And suddenly I'm standing at the edge of a two-lane highway. The light I saw comes from a lone street lamp at what appears to be a bus stop. And there, unbelievably, miraculously, is a car approaching, its headlights cutting through the darkness. I stagger into the road, waving my arms frantically. "Help! Please stop." The car slows, then pulls to a stop beside me. The driver's window rolls down to reveal an older woman with concerned eyes. "Honey, are you okay? What in the world are you doing out here?" "Please," I gasp, glancing over my shoulder to where Mason's flashlight beam is visible through the trees, moving closer. "My husband, he's trying to hurt me. I need help." Without hesitation, the woman reaches across to open the passenger door. "Get in." I practically fall into the seat, pulling the door closed just as Mason emerges from the forest. He runs toward the car, his face contorted with rage. "Drive!" I yell. "Please, drive now." The woman floors the accelerator, and the car lurches forward. In the side mirror, I watch Mason growing smaller in the distance, standing in the middle of the road, watching his captive slip away. "Thank you," I breathe, my whole body trembling with the aftermath of terror and exertion. "You saved my life." The woman glances at me, taking in my torn dress, dirt-streaked face, and wild eyes. "I'm Margaret," she says simply. "And it looks like you've got quite a story to tell." As we speed down the dark highway, putting distance between me and the nightmare I've escaped, I realize that this isn't the end, it's just the beginning. Mason and his family won't let me go easily. They have money, power, connections. But for the first time since that lock clicked shut, I feel something other than fear. I feel determined. This isn't just about surviving anymore. It's about justice. It's about making sure the Everetts can never do this to anyone else. I look down at the wedding ring still gleaming on my finger, the ring I used to begin my escape. With a decisive motion, I roll down the window and fling it into the darkness. A small act of defiance, but it feels like the first step in reclaiming my life. "Yes," I tell Margaret, clutching my phone and preparing to call the police. "I definitely have a story to tell." Margaret drives me to the nearest police station, a small building nestled in a town I've never heard of, Oak Ridge, West Virginia. My hands tremble as I clutch a foam cup of bitter coffee, sitting across from a detective named Linda Harper. Her kind eyes study me as I recount my story, starting from the beginning, laying bare the nightmare I've just escaped. "I met Mason Everett at a charity fundraiser in Philadelphia 2 years ago," I explain, my voice steadier than I expected. "He was charming, attentive, everything you'd want in a partner. His family owns Everett Holdings, a major investment firm with connections across the East Coast. Detective Harper types notes into her computer, her expression neutral but attentive. And when did you first notice something wasn't right with him? I stare into my coffee, searching for the answer. There were small things, moments when his mask would slip. Like how he'd completely shut down if I asked questions about his work. Or how he'd get this cold look in his eyes when I disagreed with him in front of his family. Looking back, the warning signs seemed so obvious. The way Mason would check my phone when he thought I wasn't looking. How he gradually isolated me from my friends, making subtle comments about them until I stopped calling them. The way his mother Eleanor would make backhanded compliments about my humble beginnings as the daughter of school teachers. But I ignored all of it. I continue, shame coloring my words. I was so caught up in the fairy tale, the handsome, wealthy man who chose me. I thought I was special. Detective Harper pauses her typing. This isn't your fault, Miss Turner. Men like Mason Everett are experts at manipulation. They show you exactly what you want to see until you're too invested to walk away. Her words offer little comfort as I think about how willingly I walked into that bunker, how completely I trusted the man who planned to let me die alone in the dark. A month before the wedding, I was using Mason's laptop to order flowers for the reception. He got a notification from his bank, and when I clicked on it, I saw some strange transactions, large sums moving through companies I'd never heard of. Transfers to accounts in the Cayman Islands, payments labeled as consulting fees to names that sounded like government officials. Detective Harper leans forward. And you confronted him about this? I asked him about it casually. He said it was just how business worked at their level and that I wouldn't understand. But something about his reaction felt off. He was too dismissive, too quick to change the subject. So later, I did some research online, just general searches about financial terminology, about what might constitute fraud. I wasn't planning to report anything. I just wanted to understand. But Mason found out about your searches. I nod, remembering his cold eyes as he stared at me through the viewing slot. He checked my search history. He thought I was investigating him, that I was going to report Everett Holdings to the authorities. And that's when he decided to get rid of you. The bluntness of her words makes me flinch, but she's right. Yes. He planned our honeymoon at this remote cabin, brought me to the bunker his grandfather built, and locked me inside. He was going to let me die there. No one would have known where to look for me. Detective Harper finishes typing and looks up at me. Miss Turner, I believe you. And we're going to do everything we can to bring Mason Everett to justice. But I need to be honest with you, this won't be easy. The Everetts are powerful people with connections throughout the state. I know, I reply, my resolve hardening. But I can't let them get away with this. Mason didn't just try to kill me, he and his family are involved in something illegal. Something big enough that they were willing to commit murder to keep it hidden. The detective nods, her expression grim. We'll need to involve the FBI. Financial crimes at this level cross state lines, maybe even international boundaries. She hands me a card. This is the number for a safe house where you can stay tonight. I'll have an officer take you there. Tomorrow, we'll get a formal statement and contact the federal authorities. As I prepare to leave, Detective Harper touches my arm. One more thing, Ms. Turner. From this moment on, you need to be extremely careful. Don't use your credit cards, don't call anyone you know, and stay off social media completely. The Everetts will be looking for you, and they have the resources to find you if you make even one mistake. Her warning sends a chill through me. I'm not just a victim escaping an abusive husband, I'm a witness to potential crimes committed by one of the most powerful families on the East Coast. My life will never be the same. The safe house is a small apartment above a hardware store in the center of town. A female officer named Rodriguez stays with me, sleeping on the couch while I take the bedroom. Despite my exhaustion, sleep eludes me. Every time I close my eyes, I see Mason's face, hear the bunker door slamming shut. Instead, I sit by the window, watching the quiet street below as the hours tick by. My thoughts drift to the life I've left behind, my job as an event coordinator, my small circle of friends, the apartment I loved in Philadelphia. All gone now, sacrificed to the altar of Mason Everett's charm. Morning brings Detective Harper back, accompanied by a tall woman in a crisp suit who introduces herself as Special Agent Teresa Winters of the FBI. We need to move quickly, Agent Winters explains as she sets up a recording device. Mason Everett reported you missing this morning. He's claiming you wandered off during a hike and never returned. Search parties are being organized as we speak. My blood runs cold at the thought of Mason playing the part of the worried husband while knowing exactly what he had done to me. He's trying to cover his tracks. Exactly. Which is why we need to get your full statement now, before the Everetts realize you've escaped and start cleaning up evidence. For the next 3 hours, I recount every detail, from the moment I discovered the strange transactions on Mason's laptop to my escape from the bunker. Agent Winters is particularly interested in the financial aspects. Do you remember any of the company names you saw in those transactions? She asks. I close my eyes, trying to visualize the screen. One was called Blue Horizon Consulting. Another was Meridian Holdings, I think. And there were transfers to accounts with numbers instead of names. Agent Winters exchanges a glance with Detective Harper. Blue Horizon is a shell company we've been tracking in connection with an international bribery scheme. If Everett Holdings is involved, this could be bigger than we thought. She turns back to me. What do you know about the Indonesian deal Caleb mentioned? Nothing, I admit. That was the first time I'd heard of it. Everett Holdings has been negotiating mining rights in protected areas of Indonesian rainforest, Agent Winters explains. Environmental groups have been fighting it for years. But somehow the company keeps getting government approvals despite clear violations of conservation laws. You think they're bribing officials, I say, the pieces falling into place. We've suspected it, but haven't been able to prove it. Your testimony could be the break we need. The weight of this revelation settles on my shoulders. It's not just about what Mason did to me anymore, it's about exposing corruption that could be destroying precious ecosystems and undermining the rule of law. What happens now? I ask. We'll get a warrant to search the cabin and the bunker. Meanwhile, you'll need to enter witness protection. The Everetts won't take this lying down. They have too much to lose. Witness protection. The words echo in my mind, carrying with them the finality of what I'm facing. A new name, a new location, a complete severance from my past life. But what choice do I have? There's something else you should know, Agent Winters adds, her expression softening slightly. Mason held a press conference an hour ago. He was very convincing, tearful, desperate to find his beloved wife who wandered off during their honeymoon. The media is eating it up. #Find Sophie Everett is already trending. The thought of Mason weaponizing public sympathy makes my stomach turn. He's trying to control the narrative. That's what men like him do, Detective Harper says quietly. They rewrite reality to suit their needs. Agent Winters closes her notebook. We're going to transport you to a secure location in Charleston this afternoon. From there, federal marshals will take over your protection while we build our case. As they prepare to leave, I find myself asking, do you think we'll win? Against the Everetts, I mean. Agent Winters pauses at the door. The truth is, Ms. Turner, cases like this are never easy. The wealthy and powerful have resources and connections that can make them seem untouchable. But sometimes, all it takes is one brave witness to bring down an empire. She gives me a small smile. Get some rest. You're going to need your strength for what's ahead. Left alone with Officer Rodriguez, I try to process everything that's happened in the past 24 hours. Yesterday, I was Sophie Everett, newlywed, trapped in a bunker and facing death. Today, I'm a key witness in what could be a major federal investigation into corruption and financial crimes. And Mason is out there, pretending to search for me, crafting a public persona of the devoted husband while privately knowing he left me to die. The disconnect is so profound it makes my head spin. Officer Rodriguez brings me a sandwich and a laptop. Agent Winters said you might want to see what you're up against. She pulls up a news site where Mason's press conference is featured prominently. I watch, mesmerized by his performance, his voice breaking as he pleads for information about his missing wife, the perfect picture of desperation and grief. Sophie is my whole world, he says, his blue eyes glistening with tears that look so genuine I almost believe them myself. We were just taking a walk, enjoying the beautiful forest around our cabin. I turned around and she was gone. Please. If anyone has seen her, if anyone knows anything, contact the authorities immediately. His mother stands beside him, her arm around his shoulders in a show of maternal support. Eleanor Everett, always the picture of sophisticated grace, looks appropriately distressed for the cameras. My daughter-in-law is a wonderful young woman, she tells the reporters, her voice steady despite her apparent distress. Our family is devastated. We're offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to her safe return. The performance is flawless. If I hadn't experienced Mason's cruelty firsthand, I might be fooled myself. The comments below the video are filled with sympathy for the Everetts and prayers for my safe return. They're good, aren't they? Officer Rodriguez observes. Rich people always know how to work the media. They've had plenty of practice, I reply, thinking of all the charity galas and social events where the Everetts presented themselves as pillars of the community, philanthropists dedicated to making the world a better place. All while engaging in bribery and corruption behind closed doors. How do you fight people who can buy the truth? I ask, more to myself than to Rodriguez. She shrugs. You tell your story louder. You find evidence they can't bury. And you don't back down, no matter how hard they try to discredit you. Her words strike a chord. Mason and his family think they've silenced me. They believe their wealth and status will protect them from consequences, just as it always has. But they've underestimated what their actions have awakened in me. The Sophie who fell for Mason's charm, who ignored red flags and silenced her own instincts to please him, that Sophie died in that bunker. The woman who emerged is someone new, someone who understands that some battles are worth fighting no matter the cost. As evening falls, Detective Harper returns with news. The FBI obtained a warrant for the cabin. They found the bunker exactly as you described it. Your fingerprints were on the inside of the vent cover, and they recovered the screws you removed. They also found traces of your DNA inside. Relief washes over me. So they have proof I was imprisoned there. Yes, but Mason is already spinning a new story. He's claiming you've been struggling with mental health issues, that you may have locked yourself in the bunker during a paranoid episode. That's absurd. I protest. Why would I lock myself in a bunker? According to Mason, you've been having delusions that someone was after you. He says he's been trying to get you help, but you refused treatment. The calculated cruelty of this new lie leaves me breathless. Not only did Mason try to kill me, but now he's attempting to paint me as mentally unstable, exactly as he and his family had planned to do all along to gain custody of any future children we might have had. No one who knows me would believe that, I insist. I've never had mental health issues. Detective Harper's expression is sympathetic but serious. The Everetts are claiming your friends and coworkers have noticed changes in your behavior over the past few months. They're saying you became increasingly paranoid and erratic after your engagement. They're lying. They're all lying. We know that, she assures me. But this is exactly what Agent Winters warned about. The Everetts are powerful and connected. They're already working to discredit you before you can testify against them. I sink back in my chair, the magnitude of what I'm facing crashing over me. So it's my word against theirs. For now. But the FBI is building a case beyond just what happened at the cabin. They're looking into Everett Holdings' finances, the Indonesian deal, everything. Your testimony was just the catalyst they needed to launch a full investigation. A knock at the door interrupts us. Officer Rodriguez checks through the peephole before opening it to admit Agent Winters, accompanied by two stern-looking men in suits. These are Marshals Davis and Reyes. Agent Winters introduces them. They'll be escorting you to a safe house in Charleston tonight. I nod, gathering the few belongings the police provided for me, a change of clothes, basic toiletries, a prepaid phone. Detective Harper pulls me aside for a moment. When this is all over, when the Everetts have been brought to justice, I want you to remember something, she says, her voice low and intense. You survived something that would have broken many people. You found a way out when there seemed to be no escape. That kind of strength doesn't just disappear once the danger has passed. Her words touch something deep within me, a reminder that despite everything Mason took from me, he couldn't take my will to live, my determination to fight back. I thank her with a quick hug before following the marshals to a waiting SUV with tinted windows. As we drive out of Oak Ridge, I watch the small town recede in the rearview mirror. Somewhere out there, Mason is still playing the role of grieving husband, while his family works behind the scenes to destroy my credibility. They think their money and influence will save them, that they can rewrite the truth just as they've always done. But they've never faced someone with nothing left to lose. In the darkness of the SUV, I make a silent promise to myself. No matter what lies the Everetts spread, no matter how they try to paint me as unstable or unreliable, I will stand firm. I will tell my story. And I will see justice done, not just for myself, but for anyone else who has fallen victim to their corruption and cruelty. The road stretches ahead, leading away from the life I knew and toward an uncertain future. But for the first time since I escaped that bunker, I feel something like hope stirring within me. This is not the end of my story, it's just the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where I am no longer a victim, but a survivor ready to fight back. The safe house in Charleston is a modest apartment in a secure building with no distinguishing features. Marshal Davis explains that I'll stay here while the FBI builds their case against the Everetts. You'll have round-the-clock protection, he assures me, pointing out the security cameras and reinforced doors. No one gets in or out without us knowing about it. I nod, though the reality of my new life is still sinking in. My world has shrunk to these few rooms, my identity reduced to key witness rather than event coordinator, friend, daughter of school teachers who valued education above all else. On my second morning in the safe house, Agent Winters arrives with a stack of newspapers and her laptop. I thought you should see what we're dealing with, she says, spreading the papers across the kitchen table. My stomach drops as I scan the headlines. Search continues for missing bride, Everett family. Offers $100,000 reward, husband pleads for information about vanished wife. Each article features the same photo, me in my wedding dress, looking radiant and unaware of what lay ahead. But it's the latest headline that makes my blood run cold. Missing woman's mental health questioned, sources reveal history of paranoia. The accompanying article quotes anonymous friends, claiming I had become increasingly unstable in the months before my wedding, convinced that people were watching me or plotting against me. These are lies, I whisper, my hands shaking as I push the paper away. I don't have any history of mental illness. And my real friends would never say these things. The Everetts are powerful, Agent Winters reminds me. They can pay people to say whatever they want, or intimidate them into cooperation. She opens her laptop and pulls up a video of a press conference from yesterday. Mason stands at a podium, his mother and brother flanking him, all wearing expressions of grave concern. My wife Sophie has been struggling with her mental health for some time, Mason says, his voice catching in a performance worthy of an Oscar. I've been trying to get her help, but she refused to see it as a problem. The stress of the wedding seemed to make things worse. I'm sharing this personal information now because I'm desperate. If Sophie is out there, confused or scared, I want her to know that I love her and I just want her to come home so we can get her the help she needs. Rage boils inside me as I watch him craft this narrative, painting me as unstable while positioning himself as the devoted, concerned husband. It's so perfectly calculated. If I do come forward with accusations about the bunker, people will already be primed to dismiss me as delusional. There's more, Agent Winters says, her expression grim. She shows me another video, this one from a morning news program featuring a woman I recognize as Dr. Patricia Reynolds, a psychiatrist who attended several Everett family functions. While I cannot comment specifically on Sophie Everett's case due to confidentiality, Dr. Reynolds says smoothly, I can say that persecutory delusions often manifest in otherwise high-functioning individuals during times of stress or major life changes. These patients may become convinced that loved ones are plotting against them or trying to harm them. I never met with her professionally. I protest. She was just a guest at Everett events. This is completely fabricated. We know, Agent Winters assures me. But the public doesn't. The Everetts are creating reasonable doubt before you even tell your story. I sink into a chair, the weight of what I'm facing pressing down on me. How do I fight this? They've got the media, they've got experts willing to lie for them, they've got everything. Agent Winters sits across from me, her expression softening slightly. You have the truth, Sophie. And sometimes, that's enough. Especially when paired with evidence. She pulls a file from her briefcase. The FBI raided Everett Holdings yesterday. With a warrant based on the financial information you provided. They've already found evidence supporting your claims about the Indonesian mining deal, documents showing payments to government officials disguised as consulting fees, offshore. Accounts hiding millions in bribes. Hope flickers to life inside me. So you can prove they're criminals. We're building that case, yes. But we still need to address what Mason did to you personally. The financial crimes and the attempted murder are separate charges, though. They're connected by motive. I stare at the newspaper headlines, at Mason's sincere face pleading for the return of his troubled wife. No one's going to believe me now. He's turned me into the villain of this story. Agent Winters taps the table to regain my attention. That's exactly what he wants you to think. He wants you to feel powerless, to believe that no one will take your word over his. That's how men like Mason operate. They isolate their victims and convince them that resistance is futile. Her words hit home, reminding me of how Mason gradually separated me from friends who weren't good enough for us, how he subtly undermined my confidence while presenting himself as my biggest supporter. Even now, miles away and under federal protection, he's still trying to control the narrative of my life. So what do? I ask, straightening my shoulders. We fight back. On our terms, not his. Agent Winters pulls out a notepad. The U.S. attorney wants to arrange a controlled interview with a respected journalist, someone with a reputation for integrity who won't be easily swayed by the Everett name or money. You tell your story, directly to the American people. Won't that put me at risk? The Everetts will know I'm alive and working with authorities. They'll find out soon enough anyway, once we bring charges. This way, we control the timing and the message. We break the story before they can spin it further. The idea terrifies and exhilarates me in equal measure. A chance to reclaim my voice, to counter the lies being spread about me. Who's the journalist? Rebecca Morales from the Washington Post. She's known for her investigations into corporate corruption and has won Pulitzers for exposing powerful men who abused their positions. The Everetts can't buy or intimidate her. I think about it, weighing the risks against the opportunity to set the record straight. When would this happen? Tomorrow. Morales is already in Charleston, working on background for the story. We'd bring her here, under strict confidentiality. The interview would be published simultaneously with the announcement of charges against Mason. 24 hours to prepare to tell the world my story. To counter the narrative Mason has so carefully constructed. The responsibility feels overwhelming, but also somehow right. This is my chance to reclaim my truth from those who tried to bury it, and me, forever. I'll do it, I say, my voice stronger than I expected. Agent Winters nods, a hint of approval in her eyes. Good. In the meantime, we need to prepare you. The Everetts will attack your credibility, your character, everything they can think of. You need to be ready for that. The rest of the day passes in intensive preparation. Agent Winters and a Justice Department media specialist named Marcus help me anticipate questions, practice responses, and prepare for the emotional toll of reliving my trauma publicly. Remember, Marcus advises, stick to the facts. Your power is in the details, the exact words Mason said to you, the precise layout of the bunker, the specific threats he made. Those details ring true because they are true. As evening falls, I stand at the window of the safe house, looking out at the city lights of Charleston. Somewhere out there, Mason continues his performance as the worried husband, unaware that his carefully constructed world is about to come crashing down. I think about the person I was just weeks ago, so eager to please, so willing to ignore red flags for the sake of maintaining the perfect image of my relationship. That woman seems like a stranger now, someone I observe with a mixture of compassion and frustration. She wanted so badly to be loved that she mistook control for affection, possession for passion. But that woman is gone. In her place stands someone stronger, someone who crawled through a ventilation shaft and ran through dark woods to escape a man who thought he owned her. Someone who refuses to be silenced or erased. Rebecca Morales arrives early the next morning, escorted by Agent Winters. She's shorter than I expected, with sharp eyes that seem to take in everything at once. She greets me with a firm handshake and direct gaze. Thank you for trusting me with your story, Ms. Turner, she says, setting up a small recorder between us. I understand how difficult this must be. Just tell the truth, I reply. That's all I ask. Morales nods, her expression serious. That's what I do. No matter who it angers or what powerful interests it threatens. The interview lasts 4 hours. Morales is thorough, asking detailed questions about my relationship with Mason, the warning signs I missed, the financial documents I discovered, and finally, the horrifying experience in the bunker. She asks me to describe the bunker in minute detail, checking my account against the FBI's photographs of the scene. The Everetts are claiming you have a history of mental health issues, she says bluntly. How do you respond to that? I take a deep breath, steadying myself. It's a calculated lie designed to discredit me before I could tell the truth about what Mason did. I have no history of mental illness. My medical records will confirm that. The anonymous friends they've quoted don't exist, or if they do, they've been paid or coerced into lying. Morales nods, making notes. What about Dr. Patricia Reynolds, who implied she treated you? I met Dr. Reynolds exactly twice, at Everett family functions. She was a guest, not my doctor. I never had a professional relationship with her, and I believe her statements violate medical ethics, since she's creating the false impression that I was her patient. Why do you think Mason did this? Was it solely because of what you discovered about Everett Holdings' finances? This question gives me pause. I've thought about it constantly since my escape, trying to understand the mind of a man who could lock his new wife in a bunker and walk away. The financial crimes were the trigger, I say slowly. But I think it goes deeper than that. Mason and his family view people as either assets or liabilities. When we met, I was an asset, someone who enhanced Mason's image as a caring, down-to-earth man despite his wealth. But once I started asking questions, once I showed independence, I became a liability. And the Everetts eliminate liabilities, one way or another. Morales studies me, her gaze thoughtful. You're remarkably composed for someone who's been through such trauma. Where does that strength come from? The question catches me off guard. I've been so focused on the facts, on proving what happened, that I haven't really reflected on my own resilience. I think, I begin, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice, that we all have reserves of strength we don't know about until we're tested. When Mason locked that door, he thought he was sentencing me to death. He underestimated what happens when you corner someone and leave them nothing to lose. He gave me only 2 options, find a way out or die trying. So I found a way out. As the interview concludes, Morales thanks me again. My editor has agreed to publish this as soon as the FBI announces charges against Mason. Probably within The next 48 hours. Are you ready for what comes next? I think about the media storm that will follow, the scrutiny, the attacks from the Everett camp. I have to be. There's no going back now. After Morales leaves, Agent Winters updates me on the investigation. We've arrested 2 executives at Everett Holdings based on the documents we seized. They're already offering to testify against the family in exchange for reduced sentences. She allows herself a small smile. The Everett empire is starting to crumble from within. What about Mason? And Caleb? And Eleanor? We're preparing to arrest Mason tomorrow on charges of attempted murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy. Caleb and Eleanor will face charges related to the financial crimes, though we're still determining Caleb's level of involvement in what happened to you. I think about Caleb's apparent discomfort when he saw me in the bunker. He hadn't seemed to know what Mason had done, but he also hadn't immediately freed me. His loyalties had been divided, his moral compass compromised by family ties. What happens after the arrests? I ask. You'll remain in protective custody until the trials. The Everetts still have connections, people who might want to prevent you from testifying. Agent Winters' expression is somber. I won't lie to you, the next year or more will be difficult. High-profile cases like this move slowly, and the defense will use every tactic to delay and discredit. The thought of spending months or even years in hiding, waiting to testify, makes my heart sink. But what choice do I have? This is the price of survival, of justice. I understand, I tell her. I'll do whatever it takes. The next morning, I wake to the sound of urgent voices in the safe house's living room. I emerge from my bedroom to find Agent Winters and several marshals gathered around a television. Breaking news banners flash across the screen as a reporter stands outside what I recognize as the Everett estate in Philadelphia. Federal agents arrested Mason Everett early this morning on charges of attempted murder and kidnapping of his wife, Sophie Turner Everett. In a shocking development, authorities allege that Everett imprisoned his new bride in an underground bunker during their honeymoon and left her to die. The FBI has also raided Everett Holdings headquarters as part of a separate investigation into alleged financial crimes and international bribery. The camera cuts to footage of Mason being led out of his home in handcuffs, his expression a mask of outrage. Eleanor Everett stands in the doorway, watching with cold fury as her son is placed in a police car. Simultaneous arrests have been made at the homes of Eleanor Everett, the family matriarch, and several executives of Everett Holdings, the reporter continues. Sources close to the investigation say that Sophie Turner Everett, previously reported missing, is alive and cooperating with federal authorities. Agent Winters turns to me. Your interview with Morales will be published within the hour. Are you ready for this? I nod, my eyes fixed on the screen where Mason's arrest is being replayed. There's something surreal about watching the man who nearly killed me being led away in handcuffs, his power and privilege suddenly useless against the weight of his crimes. The U.S. Attorney is holding a press conference at noon, Agent Winters continues. She'll outline the charges and take questions. By this evening, your story will be national news. A mixture of relief and anxiety washes over me. The truth is finally coming to light, but with it comes exposure I never wanted. My trauma, my near-death experience, will be dissected by news anchors and social media commentators. My judgment will be questioned, my character scrutinized. What if people don't believe me? I ask, giving voice to my deepest fear. What if they think I'm exactly what Mason has been saying, unstable, delusional? Agent Winters turns away from the television to face me directly. Some people won't believe you. That's the reality of cases like this. The Everetts have spent years cultivating an image of respectability and philanthropy. Some people will refuse to accept that they could do something so monstrous. Her honesty is both painful and oddly comforting. But, she continues, your story has something that their lies don't, evidence. The bunker exists. Your DNA is there. The financial records support your account of what you discovered. And now, other Everett employees are coming forward with their own stories. As if on cue, the news cuts to a new development. A young woman stands at a podium, her hands trembling slightly as she addresses the press. My name is Jessica Patel. I worked as an executive assistant at Everett Holdings for 3 years. What Sophie Turner is saying about the Everetts is true. I witnessed their illegal activities firsthand and was threatened when I raised concerns. I've provided documents to the FBI that corroborate Ms. Turner's allegations. More voices join the chorus throughout the day. A former accountant who was fired after questioning suspicious transactions. A household employee who overheard Eleanor Everett instructing Mason on how to handle the Sophie situation. A business partner who withdrew from a deal after being asked to participate in bribing Indonesian officials. By the time Rebecca Morales's article is published, Featuring my detailed account alongside corroborating evidence from the FBI investigation, the narrative has already begun to shift. The Everetts are no longer the sympathetic family searching for a troubled young woman, they're the subjects of a massive federal investigation into crimes ranging from financial fraud to attempted murder. Social media explodes with reactions. The hashtag #StandWithSophie trends as women share their own stories of relationships with controlling, abusive men. The mental health community rallies against the Everetts' attempt to weaponize psychiatric diagnoses to discredit me. Memes and videos analyze Mason's press conferences, pointing out signs of deception that viewers missed the first time around. As evening falls, Agent Winters brings me her laptop to show me a new development. Dr. Patricia Reynolds has issued a public apology for her comments implying she had treated me. I want to clarify that Sophie Turner Everett was never my patient. She states, looking distinctly uncomfortable. My comments were inappropriate and potentially misleading. I sincerely apologize for any harm they may have caused. The Everetts' facade is cracking, Agent Winters observes. People who supported them yesterday are distancing themselves today. No one wants to be associated with what they did to you. For the first time since my escape, I feel something like vindication. The truth is powerful, especially when backed by evidence and the courage of others who refuse to remain silent. That night, I write in a journal provided by one of the marshals, trying to process the whirlwind of events. The words flow easily, my thoughts clearer than they've been in months. Mason thought the bunker would be my tomb, I write. Instead, it became the cocoon where I transformed into someone stronger than he could ever imagine. He locked me away to silence me, but instead, he gave me the most powerful voice I've ever had. Now, that voice will help bring him and his family to justice. I close the journal, a sense of purpose settling over me. My ordeal isn't over, there will be trials, testimony, the continued stress of living under protection. But for the first time, I can see beyond the trauma to the impact my story is having. Other victims are finding courage in my example. Powerful people who thought themselves untouchable are facing consequences. Mason locked me in that bunker believing no one would ever know what he'd done. He never imagined that his attempt to bury me would instead plant a seed that would grow into a movement stronger than all his family's money and influence combined. The path ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear, I am no longer defined by what was done to me, but by how I rose from the darkness. That realization feels like the first real breath of freedom since I escaped the bunker, a freedom that no one, not even Mason Everett, can ever take away from me again. 6 months after Mason's arrest, I sit in a private room at the federal courthouse in Philadelphia, waiting to testify. My hands rest calmly in my lap, though inside, a storm of emotion swirls, determination, anxiety, and a quiet rage that has become my constant companion. Through the window, I can see protesters carrying signs with my face and the words, "Believe survivors," alongside others demanding justice for the communities affected by Everett Holdings' corrupt practices. You ready for this? Agent Winters asks, her familiar presence a comfort after months of preparation for this moment. I nod, smoothing down the simple navy blue dress I chose for today, professional, serious, nothing that could be used to paint me as seeking attention. As ready as I'll ever be. The past 6 months have been a bizarre mix of isolation and intense public scrutiny. While I've remained in protective custody, my story has taken on a life of its own. The media coverage has been relentless, with every detail of my relationship with Mason dissected and analyzed. Old photos from our courtship appear regularly. On news programs, experts debating what signs of trouble might be visible in Mason's smile or the way he held my hand. Rebecca Morales's article sparked a nationwide conversation about wealth, power, and accountability. Women came forward with their own stories of relationships with powerful men who used their influence to control and isolate them. The #StandWithSophie evolved into a movement advocating for stronger protections for victims of domestic abuse. Meanwhile, the Everett empire began to crumble. Investors pulled out of Everett Holdings as evidence of their financial crimes mounted. The company's stock plummeted. Long-standing business partners distanced themselves. The prestigious Everett Foundation was dissolved, its assets frozen pending the outcome of multiple investigations. But the Everetts didn't surrender quietly. Their legal team, composed of the most expensive attorneys money could buy, launched aggressive counteroffensives. They challenged the FBI's search warrants, tried to suppress evidence, and continued to suggest that I had mental health issues despite the lack of any medical records to support their claims. Eleanor Everett gave a tearful interview claiming her family was being persecuted for their success and that I had manipulated Mason, using his kind heart against him. Few believed her, but it was another painful reminder of how the wealthy and powerful will rewrite reality rather than face consequences for their actions. The most unexpected development came 2 months ago when Caleb Everett approached federal prosecutors with an offer to testify against his mother and brother in exchange for leniency. According to Agent Winters, Caleb provided extensive documentation of the family's financial crimes, including records of the Indonesian mining deal and evidence that Eleanor had personally arranged bribes to government officials. Today, I'll face Mason in court for the first time since my escape. The thought makes my stomach clench, but I refuse to show fear. He no longer has power over me. A court officer appears at the door. "Miss Turner, they're ready for you." As I stand, Agent Winters squeezes my shoulder. "Remember, just tell the truth. That's all you need to do." The courtroom falls silent as I enter. It's packed with journalists, legal observers, and members of the public who lined up before dawn to secure seats for the day's testimony. At the defense table sits Mason, almost unrecognizable in his orange jumpsuit, his once perfect hair grown out and his confident posture replaced by a stiff, defensive stance. Beside him, his high-priced attorney whispers something in his ear. I feel Mason's eyes on me as I walk to the witness stand, but I don't give him the satisfaction of meeting his gaze. After being sworn in, I sit and face the prosecutor, a woman named Diana Chen, whose reputation for taking down corrupt executives precedes her. "Ms. Turner," she begins, "could you please tell the court how you met the defendant, Mason Everett?" And so I begin my story, speaking clearly and steadily into the microphone. I describe our meeting at the charity fundraiser, our whirlwind courtship, the gradual isolation from my friends, and the subtle controlling behaviors that I mistook for protectiveness. I explain how I discovered the suspicious financial transactions and Mason's dismissive response when I asked about them. Then I come to the honeymoon, the walk to the bunker, the moment when Mason's mask finally dropped completely. He told me to go inside first, said he wanted to show me something his grandfather built. I testify, my voice never wavering despite the painful memories. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, I turned around and saw his expression had changed. There was coldness in his eyes that I'd never seen before. When I asked what was wrong, he said, "Creating my freedom," and then he slammed the door shut. I described the bunker in painstaking detail, the dimensions, the sparse furnishings, the small food supply that made it clear Mason never intended for me to survive long. I explain how I used my wedding ring to unscrew the vent cover, my desperate plan to escape through the ventilation system. And what happened when the defendant's brother, Caleb Everett, arrived at the cabin? Prosecutor Chen asks. Mason brought him to the bunker. Caleb seemed shocked to see me there. He asked Mason if he had lost his mind. They argued, and when they left, they didn't fully lock the door. That's how I was able to escape. And after your escape, what actions did the defendant take? He reported me missing, claiming I had wandered off during a hike. He held press conferences pleading for information about my whereabouts. And he began spreading the false narrative that I had mental health issues, that I was paranoid and delusional. When it's time for cross-examination, Mason's attorney approaches with a predatory smile. Harold Wingate is known for his aggressive style and willingness to attack victims on the stand. "Miss Turner," he begins, his voice dripping with false sympathy, "you've given us quite a dramatic story today. Very compelling. But I'd like to clarify a few points." He pauses, consulting his notes. "You claim my client imprisoned you because you discovered financial irregularities at Everett Holdings. Is that correct?" "Yes. Yet you admit you have no financial background, no expertise in corporate accounting or international business law. Isn't it possible you simply misunderstood what you saw?" I meet his gaze steadily. "The FBI doesn't seem to think so. The transactions I saw are the same ones they've presented as evidence of bribery and money laundering." Wingate's smile tightens. "Let's talk about your relationship with my client. By your own admission, he was generous, attentive, even loving for most of your relationship. Isn't it strange that he would suddenly transform into this monster you've described?" "It wasn't sudden," I reply. Looking back, I can see the warning signs, the controlling behavior, the isolation, the way he and his family treated people they considered beneath them. But Mason was careful to show me only what he thought I wanted to see until he no longer needed to maintain the facade. Or perhaps, Wingate suggests, his voice hardening, you became increasingly paranoid, as several witnesses have testified. Perhaps you began to misinterpret innocent actions, seeing threats where none existed. Those witnesses were paid by the Everetts or afraid of them, I counter. My medical records show no history of mental illness. And paranoid people don't typically escape from underground bunkers and help the FBI uncover massive financial fraud. A murmur runs through the courtroom, quickly silenced by the judge. Wingate changes tactics, spending the next hour trying to find inconsistencies in my testimony, suggesting alternate explanations for everything from the bunker, a panic room you locked yourself in during a delusional episode, to Mason's damning words as he locked me in, a misheard comment taken out of context. But I remain calm, answering each question with the same steady clarity. When Wingate finally runs out of angles, the judge calls for a recess. As I stand to leave the witness stand, I finally allow myself to look directly at Mason. His face is a mask of cold fury, his eyes burning with hatred. In that moment, I see the true Mason Everett, not the charming man who wooed me or the concerned husband who pleaded for my return on national television, but the man who could lock a woman in a bunker and walk away without remorse. I hold his gaze for a long moment, letting him see that I am not intimidated, not broken, not silenced. Then I turn and walk out of the courtroom, my head held high. In the hallway, Rebecca Morales waits with a supportive smile. She's been covering the trial for the Washington Post, her articles providing a counterweight to the sympathetic coverage Mason still receives from media outlets friendly to the Everetts. "You were brilliant in there," she tells me. "Clear, consistent, unshakable." Juries respond to that. "I just told the truth," I reply, the mantra Agent Winters instilled in me over months of preparation. "Sometimes that's the most powerful thing you can do." Rebecca glances at her notebook. "I'm working on a follow-up piece about the broader implications of this case, how it's changing public perception of powerful families like the Everetts who've operated above the law for generations. Would you be willing to comment?" I consider for a moment. "I think the most important change isn't about the Everetts specifically, but about whose voices get heard and believed. For too long, people with money and influence could control the narrative, silence their victims, and escape consequences. This case is showing that the truth can still prevail, even against the most powerful opponents." Rebecca nods, jotting down my words. "That's exactly what people need to hear right now." The trial continues for 3 more weeks. Expert witnesses confirm that the bunker was designed to be inescapable from the inside. Digital forensic specialists present evidence from Mason's computer showing his searches for "how long can someone survive without food" and "untraceable methods of disposal" in the weeks before our honeymoon. Most damaging of all is Caleb's testimony. He confirms that Mason and Eleanor had discussed the Sophie problem and how to handle it permanently in family meetings. He describes his mother's cold calculation as she suggested using the bunker as a solution that would leave no evidence connecting Mason to my disappearance. She said that by the time anyone found the body, if they ever did, decomposition would make it impossible to determine cause of death. Caleb testifies, unable to look at his mother as he speaks. Mason agreed to the plan immediately. He said it was elegant. Eleanor's expression remains impassive as her younger son testifies against her, but I notice her hands clenched so tightly that her knuckles turn white. On the final day of testimony, an unexpected witness appears, Dr. Patricia Reynolds, the psychiatrist who had implied on national television that I was her patient suffering from paranoid delusions. To everyone's surprise, she has been called by the prosecution, not the defense. Under oath, she admits that she never treated me, never even spoke to me beyond brief social pleasantries at Everett events. Eleanor Everett asked me to make those statements, Dr. Reynolds confesses, her professional demeanor cracking under the weight of her lies. She said it would help her son in a difficult situation. She made a substantial donation to my research foundation the next day. When the jury begins deliberations, I return to the safe house where I've lived for the past 7 months. Agent Winters assures me that regardless of the verdict, the federal case against the Everetts for financial crimes is ironclad, thanks in large part to the evidence my escape helped uncover. Even if the worst happens and Mason is acquitted of the charges related to your imprisonment, he'll still face decades in prison for the bribery and money laundering, she tells me. Same for Eleanor. They're not walking away from this. But I can't help worrying. The Everetts have escaped consequences before. Their money and connections have shielded them from the repercussions of their actions for generations. What if this time is no different? For 3 days, the jury deliberates. While I wait, alternating between hope and dread. On the morning of the 4th day, I receive the call, they've reached a verdict. The courtroom is even more packed than usual as we wait for the jury to enter. Mason sits at the defense table, still projecting confidence despite the weeks of damning testimony. Eleanor watches from the gallery, her aristocratic features set in an expression of cold disdain. When the jury files in, I search their faces for clues, but they avoid eye contact with both me and Mason. The judge asks if they've reached a verdict, and the forewoman stands. On the count of kidnapping in the 1st degree, we find the defendant, Mason Everett, guilty. A collective gasp ripples through the courtroom. On the count of attempted murder in the 1st degree, we find the defendant guilty. Mason's facade finally cracks. His face contorts with rage as he turns to glare at me, as if his predicament is my fault rather than the consequence of his own actions. On the count of conspiracy to commit murder, we find the defendant guilty. I close my eyes, relief washing over me in a wave so powerful it nearly brings me to my knees. Agent Winters squeezes my hand as the judge thanks the jury and sets a date for sentencing. As Mason is led away in handcuffs, he stops and turns toward me. "This isn't over," he hisses, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "You'll regret this, Sophie. I promise you that." But his threats ring hollow now. The man who once held my life in his hands is powerless, reduced to empty words as deputies guide him back to his cell. Outside the courthouse, I face a forest of microphones and cameras. After months of letting others speak for me, I decide it's time to reclaim my voice completely. Today, justice was served not just for me, but for everyone who has ever been manipulated, controlled, or silenced by someone with power and privilege. I begin, my voice steady despite the emotions roiling inside me. Mason Everett thought his family name and wealth put him above the law. He thought he could discard a human life, my life, without consequences. Today's verdict sends a clear message that no one, regardless of their status or connections, has the right to treat another person that way. I pause, choosing my next words carefully. To anyone watching who feels trapped in a relationship where control is disguised as love, where isolation is presented as protection, there is hope. There is a way out. And there are people who will believe you and stand with you when you find the courage to tell your truth. The resulting headline on Rebecca Morales's front page article reads, "Justice Served, Sophie Turner's Courage Brings Down Everett Empire." The accompanying photo shows me on the courthouse steps, speaking into the microphones with a strength and determination that would have been unimaginable to the woman who followed Mason trustingly into that bunker. In the weeks that follow, Mason is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Eleanor receives 20 years for her role in both the murder conspiracy and the financial crimes. Several Everett Holdings executives reach plea deals in exchange for testimony, resulting in the complete dismantling of the company's leadership structure. Caleb's cooperation earns him a reduced sentence of 8 years. Before being taken to begin his term, he asks to speak with me privately, a request I grant with some hesitation. "I wanted to apologize," he says when we meet in a conference room at the federal building, a marshal standing quietly by the door. "Not just for what Mason did, or for what our mother planned, but for my own cowardice. When I saw you in that bunker, I knew it was wrong. I should have helped you immediately." "Why didn't you?" I ask, the question that has haunted me for months. Caleb's gaze drops to his hands. "Fear. Of my mother, mainly. Of losing my position, my identity as an Everett. The family was everything to us. We were raised to believe that protecting the Everett name was our highest purpose." He looks up, his expression haunted. "It's no excuse. I'll have to live with what I did, and didn't do, for the rest of my life." I study him, searching for sincerity in his remorse. "Your testimony helped ensure justice was served. That counts for something." He nods, accepting this small mercy without pushing for more. As he's led away to begin his sentence, I realize I feel no satisfaction in his downfall, only a sense that balance has been restored. Actions have consequences, even for the privileged few who have spent lifetimes believing otherwise. 1 year after my escape from the bunker, I stand on a different stage, addressing a conference on domestic violence and coercive control. The audience includes law enforcement officers, social workers, legislators, and survivors. My story has opened doors to advocacy work I never imagined for myself. The most dangerous prison isn't built with concrete walls and steel doors, I tell them. It's constructed slowly, invisibly, with manipulation and isolation. With love. Bombing followed by subtle criticism. With grand gestures followed by quiet control. By the time you realize you're trapped, the key seems to be in someone else's hand. I pause, looking out at the sea of attentive faces. But here's what I learned in that bunker, in those desperate hours when my survival depended on finding a way out: we are stronger than we know. More resourceful than we've been led to believe. And the key to our freedom has been within our reach all along. In the back of the hall sits Agent Winters, who has become both mentor and friend. Beside her is Rebecca Morales, whose continued reporting on my case has led to a book deal and a documentary series. Margaret, the woman who stopped to help a desperate stranger on a dark highway, is there too. We've stayed in touch, her simple act of kindness a reminder that for every person who means harm, there are others willing to extend a helping hand. After the presentation, a young woman approaches me, her eyes filled with a mixture of admiration and recognition. "Your story helped me leave my boyfriend," she says quietly. "He wasn't trying to kill me, but he was smothering me, controlling me. I kept making excuses for him until I read about you. That's when I realized I didn't have to wait until things got worse to save myself." Her words are the greatest vindication, the knowledge that my ordeal has created ripples of change, helping others find the strength to seek freedom before they end up in their own versions of the bunker. As I sign books and speak with conference attendees, I reflect on the journey that brought me here. Mason thought he was writing the end of my story when he locked that bunker door. Instead, he inadvertently opened the first page of a new chapter, one where I discovered a strength I never knew I possessed and a purpose that transcends the trauma I endured. The woman who entered that bunker was seeking approval, acceptance, love on someone else's terms. The woman who emerged understands that true freedom comes not from being chosen by someone powerful, but from claiming your own power, even in the darkest circumstances. Mason Everett thought he could silence me forever. Instead, he gave me a voice that reaches thousands. He thought he could bury me in darkness. Instead, he pushed me to find a light within myself that no one can ever extinguish. I am no longer defined by what was done to me, but by what I did in response, how I fought, how I survived, how I transformed my pain into purpose. And in that transformation lies the most powerful form of justice, one that no wealth or privilege can ever overcome, the reclamation of my own story, told in my own voice, changing lives in ways Mason could never have anticipated when he thought he was ending mine. The bunker was meant to be my tomb. Instead, it became the crucible in which I discovered my true strength, a strength that continues to light the way not just for me, but for countless others finding their own paths from darkness to freedom. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss any upload from us.